This is an Indian bronze sculpture of Lord Vishnu, dating back to the 8th century CE. Notice the intricate details on the headdress, the garments, and the weapons. This is a remarkable work of art. But have you ever wondered how ancient Indian artisans made such beautiful metal sculptures? The process they used was called the lost wax method, also known as the indirect metal casting technique. Today, we will take a closer look at this amazing process by recreating it to make this small bronze figure of Ganesha. So let's get started. To begin with, we need a mold box made from clay. This is where the magic is going to happen. We are going to pour molten metal into this box, and when it solidifies, we will end up with a bronze figurine of Ganesha. Now, that's all well and good, but how do we make such a complex design in that mold? Well, that's where this comes in. This is a sculpting wax used for the lost wax method. It's softer than regular wax, so it's easier to work with at room temperature. We will use this to sculpt the entire figure of Ganesha in detail, which would then be copied onto the inside walls of the mold. First, we cut the wax into smaller pieces and start putting them together to form the body of Ganesha. We work quickly, but carefully, because once the wax starts hardening, it becomes brittle and can break. So we need to finish assembling the body before the wax hardens. And just like that, the body of Ganesha is complete. Now, we move on to the details. We add small pieces of wax to form the facial features, the trunk, the tusks, and the ears. We even add the decorative patterns on his clothes. Once we are satisfied with the details, we let the wax harden. This is our prototype. It's not perfect, but it's close enough for what we need. The next step is to attach a pouring spout to the prototype. This is a small tube made from wax that allows us to pour the molten metal into the mold later. Now we have our final prototype ready. Let's move on to making the mold. For this, we take our clay and start forming the walls of the mold box. We need to make sure that the walls are thick enough to hold the weight of the molten metal. Once the walls are in place, we add the bottom and the top lids. And here's our finished mold. The next step is to attach the prototype to the inside of the mold. To do this, we melt some wax and brush it onto the surface of the mold. This will help the prototype stick to the mold. Now, we insert the prototype into the mold and gently press it against the walls. Make sure there are no air bubbles or gaps between the wax and the mold. This is very important. Now, we need to secure the prototype to the mold. For this, we melt some wax and brush it over the joints and any other weak areas. This will ensure that the prototype does not move or leak out during the casting process. With the prototype secured to the mold, we are ready to move on to the next step. But before we do that, we need to prepare the metal for casting. For this, we will be using bronze, which is an alloy of copper and tin. These metals are added to the melting furnace in specific proportions to achieve the desired properties of the bronze. Once the metals are added, we heat them until they melt. This requires a lot of heat and a special furnace called a crucible furnace. With the metal melted, we remove it from the furnace and let it cool slightly. Now we take our mold and place it on a sturdy surface. We then heat the mold to a high temperature. This is to drive out any moisture from the clay and also to expand the metal so that it fills all the details of the mold. Once the mold is hot enough, we slowly pour the molten metal into the spout of the prototype. We try to pour the metal in one continuous motion without splashing or spilling any. As the metal flows into the mold, we gently move it to make sure that the metal fills all the details of the mold. Once the mold is full, we immediately place the lid on the top to prevent any air bubbles from entering. Now, we let the metal cool and solidify. This is a critical moment because if the metal is not completely full, or if there are air bubbles, the casting will be ruined. Once the metal has solidified, we remove the top lid. This is exciting. We don't know what's inside yet. So we carefully break away the outer shell of the mold to reveal the bronze figurine of Ganesha. It's not perfect, but it's solid and complete. This is an amazing feeling. All our hard work has paid off. Now we need to clean up the casting to remove any excess metal or impurities. This is done by hammering the figurine on a flat surface. We also file down any rough edges or areas that need more detail. Once the basic shape is achieved, we move on to adding the finer details. For this, we use a variety of tools, including a magnifying glass and a mini blowtorch. We heat the figurine with the blowtorch, and then use a small hammer to add small details. This process is called chasing. We chase down all the details that were lost in the casting, such as the wrinkles on the clothes, the patterns on the body, and the facial features. Chasing is a delicate process that requires a lot of skill and patience, but it is also very rewarding. With the details added, we now move on to patenting. This is the process of coloring the metal to enhance its appearance. For this, we use natural dyes and a special technique to create a rainbow effect on the figurine. Patenting is not an easy process, but it is an essential one. It adds a unique and beautiful look to the bronze and highlights the intricate details. After patenting, we add a protective coating to the figurine. This is a thin layer of wax that prevents any damage or corrosion to the bronze. We apply the wax using a soft brush and buff it into the figurine. This gives it a shiny and long-lasting finish. And here it is! Our finished bronze figurine of the colors are vibrant and the details are sharp. This is the result of weeks of hard work, but it is also the result of an ancient technique that has been passed down through generations. Making a bronze sculpture using the lost wax method is a complex and challenging process, but it is also a rewarding and enjoyable one. It requires a lot of skill, patience, and attention to detail, but the end result is great. This is a technique that has stood the test of time, and it continues to be used today to create beautiful works of art. If you enjoyed this video and want to learn more about ancient Indian techniques, stay tuned. Thanks for watching.